technology enables precise and timely treatments. At Tanner Health, every patient's journey is a testament to resilience, a story of strength, healing, and hope. We go beyond treatment to redefine what compassionate care truly means. That's Tanner Health. That's care redefined. Learn more at tanner.org.
Oak Mountain Academy specializes in a customized designed academic approach tailored to meet the needs of our families. Our lower division prepares students with the necessary foundation to build excellence. Our middle division provides students with over 15 course offerings, providing them with opportunities to explore their talents and gifts. Our upper division provides personalized academic journeys, allowing them to achieve their dreams. I'm Patrick Uran, head of school, inviting you to journey with us. For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us, where every path leads to purpose.
National headlines and the local stories you care about. WLBB, Carrollton, News Talk, 1330, FM 106.3.
Good morning. Welcome to the Community Voice. I'm Steve Graddish, your host. Delighted to have you with us. Very pleased to have in studio State Representative David Huddleston, District 72. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
My little 10-second bio blurb. Here we go. State Representative David Huddleston was elected to the House of Representatives in 2022 and serves as Citizens House District 72. And if you don't know, that includes portions of Carroll, Hurt, and Troup counties. He's a fifth-generation farmer from Carrollton and currently resides on his family farm in Rootville, where he and his son Andrew operate the cow-calf operation, chicken houses, hay fields, and beehives. His greatest accomplishment is working alongside his son and passing down the knowledge, expertise, and drive that it takes to be a farmer. As a state legislator, he is interested in legislation that would encourage small businesses and local economies, modernize law enforcement equipment, training, and techniques, as well as security and resources for local school district and District 72. Furthermore, he seeks to support rural communities through legislation that would promote farming, agriculture enhancement initiatives such as broadband. He's currently Secretary of the House Agriculture Consumer Affairs Committee. He serves on the Energy, Utilities, and Telecommunications Committee, also the House Interstate Cooperation Committee, plus the Natural Resources and Environmental Committee, and the Special Committee Resources Management, and that's 5.
That's correct.
That's a lot.
It is. Those are very busy committees.
But he's also, believe it or not, he's also president of the Georgia Cattlemen's Association. And he adorns the cover of the April issue of the Georgia Cattlemen's Association magazines, which we're posting to our video on the Facebook page to see him and his get up. And there's no cow in the picture, which makes it, somewhat disappointing. But anyway, you can look at that. And we're on the Facebook Live this morning, and we'll also be archiving that to the YouTube page. Well, take a breath, and good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. And going back to the being president of the Cattlemen's Association, kind of how they headed up the article was the cattleman to lead, and I think that's the thing there is like I said, being that farmer, being that cattleman, but being at the state legislator of the impact that hopefully I and others can have related to agriculture. So they tie hand in hand together.
Well, we'll jump into that after our first commercial pretty deeply.
Yep.
But give us a quick update on the 2026 legislative session from your perspective.
To me, it was a very productive, very busy session. This was my 4th year. I've always spoke about constituent-based, and working hard for them. And I think once you get up there and even at the state capitol, within those committees, if they see you working hard, others will put you to work, be available to them, carry legislation, work on legislation, get a little more in depth within the committees. So it was a very busy session for me of carrying a couple pieces of legislation, but working on others. Hosted a number of groups this year. I had about a 2 or 3 week period there. Leadership Carroll, the Junior Chamber, some of the cattlemen folks, so Advancing Georgia Leaders, a UGA group, so just hosting them adds time within the day to be busy. But by hosting them, it goes back, even though you're working for your constituents at home, you're working for those around the state. And it's basically teaching them the day-to-day operations of how legislation moves through, but how the impact we can be within industries we're part of. So like I said, it's been a very busy session. I've carried a couple pieces of legislation, so I'd love to share them.
What were they?
So basically, and I tell you what, I want to go back one thing. I just want to share my appreciation for you all and the industry y'all have. This last month, and we'll get into it shortly, is basically within all y'all's radio stations. I've traveled the state the month of April after we got out of session, and the whole Southeast. And a lot of the individuals that's with me, I'd be in my truck and I'd be streaming y'all's radio stations.
Cool.
And they would hear the local weather from home and that type thing there. And I was in Kentucky, and they said, "How in the world can you get in a Carrollton radio station?" So just having the opportunity the way y'all stream is amazing, just to be able to hear anywhere where I'm at, to be able to stay local to home, even though when I'm out of town.
Well, cool. I appreciate that.
So a couple pieces, like I said, within legislation of carrying, and I started out working on about 5 pieces, and then it narrowed down to 2. And somebody said, carrying legislation is about like playing baseball. And, and you think, okay, how's that go about?
Yeah, how's that go about?
So basically, if you hit a 300 average in baseball, you're a pretty good baseball player, right?
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
You can go into Hall of Fame. Well, a lot of times if you go in and you tote legislation, so if you can carry about a 300 average, so I started out with 5 and I was able to get 2 pretty much work through. So I'm hopefully I'm there at that 300 average. So, so that kind of gave me an inspiration. Said, oh, okay, we're doing good,
Mm-hmm.
But one piece was House Bill 1261. This was a piece of legislation that the Georgia EMC had asked me to carry for them. What this piece of legislation does, with the background of me being with the EMCs and that type of thing there, is basically it allows your electrical utilities, and you get to thinking what we've heard a lot in the past this whole year, because I know you've had segments related to data centers, power utility companies and things like that, PSC. At the end of the day, it's affordability, it's the ratepayer, saving dollars and that type of thing there. But basically, a lot of times with your electric utilities, it's reliability of service. We have the storms, all the years I was with them, we're pretty much out there night and day, providing, getting service back restored. So by 1261, what this does is create language for the electric utilities for level 1 Freeport exemption. This allows electric utilities to go to their local county government to basically request for an exemption on materials it sets from one year to the next. Now, what that means is when I was with Carroll EMC, I had a certain level of inventory that I kind of had to carry. It was my bottom floor. So basically, I never wanted to get under that level. For the fact being, it goes back to reliability of service. If we have those storms roll in, we want that material there, because you get thinking some of this material could go 40, 50 weeks out on these transformers and those type items.
Sure.
So you get thinking at the end of the year, there's a lot of dollars paid within taxes. You can call this ad valorem, but like an inventory tax, that type of thing there. But it's those materials that's sitting on the yard. And sometimes you may have a piece of special equipment for a certain business that, for reliability of service, that it may sit there 10, 12, 15 years before it ever gets used, but you're required to pretty much have it. So this allows the local utilities to go before and request anywhere from 0 to 100% of exemption. It's on a referendum, goes on the ballot pretty much for the voters to vote upon to allow that exemption to occur. But at the end of the day, it will save dollars for your electrical utilities. But at the end of the day, like with the memberships of EMC, it'll go back, like I said, and being not member owned. Hopefully it will lower the rates for the members, but it will increase the reliability of service. So that bill pretty much, like I said, tomorrow's a big day for the governor of signing the bills or vetoing of bills, and anything that doesn't get signed automatically kind of comes into law. I didn't request a special bill signing for that one, but I've gotten a thumbs up from the governor's office. It should move on through and be good from there.
Congratulations.
So that piece, but like I said, and then another one was House Bill 874, called it Georgia Taxpayers Privacy Protection Act. Basically, that one there is we looked, a lot of times, you get to thinking information that we share, within taxpayer roles, just other, industry businesses. A lot of times your information's out there, your name, your address, phone number, that type of thing. This was a very, you don't never like to hear folks say simple bill, but it kind of was, because basically all it was requesting was if your information is shared with some, like through another entity, individual, another business, whatever, that basically your phone number is removed from that personal information, basically creating less of scam, integrity fraud and that type of thing.
Everybody's pleased with that.
And it was a very good. So a lot of times you get bills, it may take a few years to get through, and basically these you get to thinking people sees me as the ag guy.
Yeah, and they always will.
So you get to thinking, and I talked to a group just as of Saturday, these right here didn't really have anything related to ag.
But 871's awaiting the governor's signature?
1261. Yeah,
1261 is,
yeah.
Well, where's the status of 871? The taxpayers.
874. That's what I was going to fix and go through.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So basically, those bills is related to finance. It's related to taxes. So basically, that was completely out of my wheelhouse. I mean,
Sure.
Like I said, ag, natural resources, that type of thing there. So I had to do my homework because I had to go before Ways and Means Committee on the House side. Well, you got to go hearings only, subcommittee, full committee. Basically, when I'd made mention, like, I've got to go before Ways and Means, everybody, that's kind of scary because it's related to dollars, related to finance, So I had to do my homework to get educated enough to go before them to testify, and you're sitting there, hopefully you're going to be able to answer any question they may have. So I worked it through the full committee, and that was the largest committee I've ever had to testify before. It was about 28 individuals on that committee.
Sure.
874 was a pretty simple. It went through, like I said, it was simple, just removing that number off any of information that's shared, within those entities. It went through Ways and Means, very well liked, with no issues, same process. So you get to thinking, go over to the Senate, and then the Senate pretty much had to go before Senate Finance. And like I said, that's, you got Blake Tillery, that's basically appropriations, and some of the ones that deal with the state dollars. So they're going to get a little more in depth if it's related to dollars. So luckily with these within finance, a lot of times they go in there and they make amendments, make change or that type of thing there. But I was able to go through, as I was walking in, there was a gentleman walking out, and they completely changed his bill and amended his bill from what he had initially presented. So you're thinking, okay, what's going to happen to my two? My two were scheduled. I'd been leapfrogging through. My two had been scheduled same day Senate Finance Committee. They said, that's going to be hard to get through two bills of Senate Finance. So basically, I presented before Senate Finance. Both bills come out of Senate Finance, 100% unanimous votes, no amendments, no changes. So move on to rules. Basically, House Bill 1261 moved out of rules pretty quick. Got on the floor, got voted out of the Senate. 874 kind of got hung up in rules. Sometimes you got a bill it's a very good bill with no contentious, and sometimes it gets attached as a traveler.
Well, when you introduce the word privacy, then that triggers a lot of things, and I would say you mentioned data centers. I mean, privacy is a big issue.
Well, the biggest thing there is just wanting to protect the integrity and the privacy of your citizens, and,
Sure.
and like I said, it's just not having that phone number attached. But like I said, it was well received. But like I said, I was thinking it would probably sit there through the Senate rules and maybe something be attached to it that might be having a little trouble under the same code section. But it never had the opportunity to come out of rules. So I'll have to, and this actually allows me to make it a better bill for the coming year. So I'll have to reintroduce it the coming year, and I got some things I may add to it to even make it a better bill. So
Okay, our guest this morning is David Huddleston, District 72 State Rep, and we're going through a whole lot of topics in the next little bit of time. And stay with us. We'll be back with more after this.
Imagine a place where every heartbeat is monitored with the utmost care, where emergencies are met with swift attention, and where cutting-edge technology enables precise and timely treatments. At Tanner Health, every patient's journey is a testament to resilience, a story of strength, healing, and hope. We go beyond treatment to redefine what compassionate care truly means. That's Tanner Health. That's care redefined. Learn more at tanner.org.
Oak Mountain Academy is a vibrant community built on innovation, academic excellence, and a 64-year legacy of shaping community leaders. I'm Patrick Uran, head of school at Oak Mountain Academy, inviting you to visit the mountain and experience firsthand the passion, purpose, and personalized education that defines our school. Come see how our mission and vision come to life each day. For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us so that you can discover your journey on the mountain, where every path leads to purpose.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. Our guest this morning, State Representative David Huddleston from District 72. You've got, we just talked about two pieces of legislation, but you've got your hand in a whole lot of different things. I understand you've been working on agricultural commodities.
Yep.
Working with Caribbean islands. What in the world?
And I can let me add one thing prior to that from finishing up last segment.
Okay.
Basically, like I said, along with carrying legislation, I've worked on some, like I said, local legislation for Heard County school system, that type thing. But fortunately, you get to thinking you want to continue learning to be a better legislator. And basically, like I said, this last session, 2 sessions, like I said, been on electric utility telecommunications. So now they're tapping into my ag background and my electrical background from being with EMCs. So basically, Speaker Burns, I get to make appointments. So he appointed me to SLC. It's Southern Leadership Conference. It's basically of all the southeastern states, legislators, and that type of thing. So I got appointed to actually sit on the southeastern state committee of electric utility telecommunications to work along with other legislative members from around the southeast. So I look forward to that meeting. Go to a meeting this summer to learn more about what others are doing in the southeast. And then just recently, it should come out today, I think, the announcement, joint study committee that they put together. You've heard me talk a lot about preservation of farmland, not only for today but the next generation. But Speaker Burns put me on joint study committee of generational sustainability of family farms. So that's going to be very interesting and exciting for me to be a part of. But going, you're talking about with the Caribbean islands that plays part legislatively. A lot of times I'm introduced, even though I'm a poultry cattle farmer, producer, I'm the only poultry farmer in the General Assembly. So a lot of times I get introduced. Representative Huddleston here is the only poultry grower in the General Assembly.
Chickens, yeah.
So I walked out of the Agricultural Consumer Affairs Committee one Wednesday morning as we got finished, and it was the week of the IPPE show. It's the largest poultry show at the World Congress Center that's held each year, and I got called over and said, Representative Huddleston, I want to introduce you to a group. And basically they said, Representative Huddleston here is the only poultry grower in the General Assembly. So we had a great conversation, shared about the industry and what it was. It was a Caribbean delegation that had come to the IPPE show. That a couple of them had been coming, but they had brought a number of other countries along with the Caribbean islands. So we've had some conversations and then went on our merry way. Well, about a month after that, they started reaching out and they was wanting to asked about purchasing commodity items from Georgia. And, first off, I thought, say Georgia grown, that type thing. So I'd ask you talking about businesses within Georgia. They said, correct. So what it was, they did a lot of business out of Brazil and those, type things. But they said, we have a good relationship and we want to work and create a better relationship through the state of Georgia to utilize the Port of Savannah and Port of Brunswick. But you get to thinking poultry and livestock is a very large industry within Georgia, so we have a lot of commodity items that is available or businesses that can provide the commodity items. So they got talking about doing trade and importing all these items in of corn, soybean meal, livestock mixtures, equipment, and that type of thing there, hatching eggs, and the whole gamut of it. So it got kind of out of my wheelhouse. So basically, I went through the Department of Ag, got with Commissioner Harper. They got a group of folks that relates to international trade. So I pretty much got educated, had been conversating with this group of individuals 2 or 3 times a week. And I was sitting there that day in the Department of Ag and was having conversation, and a couple of the ones, and I had a letter that they had sent me that I'd requested. And I just wanted to make it real to the individuals within the Department of Ag. And I said, if you give me about 5 minutes, I get them on the phone. So I made one call, and within 5 minutes, I had 4 different countries on the phone, of these the delegate members. And so answered a lot of their questions. They wanted to come back, start creating those relationships. And I found out that it's all about relationships, all about trust, and I think they've really enjoyed the relationship we have created in working with them. So they come back the week after session. So a lot of times you get to thinking you've been gone, you've been to session, you're ready to get home, and the Monday they flew back in, and I spent the next 7 days traveling the entire state of Georgia, introducing them to individuals that I knew within the relationships of purchasing those commodity items for the 14 countries, and it turned out to be a great week. So I think it was very beneficial. Still working along through the Department of Ag, even with some trade agreement aspects, but it has taught me so much more within agriculture of introducing them to the relationships, the commodity items, and those type things there to just make it a better business for the individuals in the state.
Port, it would be just like a no-brainer to ship.
That's right, and basically everybody I reached out to that week had just been over backwards, rolled out the red carpet, and I learned so much. And we went down to Port of Savannah, and I'd never even had the opportunity, but reached out to them, and they invited us down. We made a trip one day down, and like you said, it's so convenient to utilize Port of Savannah and Port of Brunswick. But you get to thinking that is just so big of an asset for the state of Georgia to have those avenues. And like I said, I think last Monday the inland port was opened up out of Gainesville, which a lot of the commodity items. So that's a big avenue for getting those products and then inventoried items out of Gainesville, North Georgia, to the port system.
It's almost a direct pipeline to the Caribbean.
And what this was is they import a good bit from the U.S. And other countries, but basically when Melissa went through Jamaica, they want to become more somewhat self-sustainable. So they're within their poultry population, they're building like 5 or 6 feed mills, so they need those commodity items for that. Not only to still say importing in of poultry and other items, but basically to help them be more self-sustainable. But within that trade agreement, they do have a lot of items, from coffee, bananas, and other things like that even Georgia uses within that agreement there. So I look forward to continuing that relationship with them, learning from them. And like I said, just being a legislator and being a poultry grower, you never know what door it may open.
Let's shift from poultry to beef. President of the statewide Georgia Cattlemen's Association, 159 counties representing 15,000
producers.
15,000 producers. How can you make 15,000 people happy?
Well, I was going to say, I've been serving folks and serving communities my whole life.
That's a lot of producers.
The biggest thing there is just to work hard. So like I said, there's about 15,000 producers within the state. About 5,500 members within the association representing a lot of those producers. So being the Cattlemen's president, I've been affiliated with the Cattlemen's Association since early 2000s. I mean, my whole entire life, but got involved in leadership at state level back in the early 2000s.
We hear about the challenges. Of course, beef prices have gone up, but I also hear about there are really only 4 processors in all of America, and that's impacting upon the cost of beef.
You get to thinking basically within that, as in being the Georgia Cattlemen's president, it's representing all the chapters within the state, and we even affiliated of National Cattlemen's Beef Association, NCBA, out of D.C. and out of Colorado. So basically at the end of the day, we're being that voice, for the producers. And actually, the Cattlemen's Association's really played a major role at where I'm at today as legislatively, because back in 2017 I represented the state of Georgia through a YCC conference that went from Colorado to D.C. And when I was in D.C., it's kind of what put the bug in, put the fire under me to be that voice. So you get to thinking back within the industry itself. You hear a lot within the news because prices, like you said, they want to look at taking care of the prices from the consumer level, but like I said, the prices are some of the all-time highs on the producer level. But at the end of the day, like I said, the cow-calf producer would be making a few dollars. But I tell folks, I said, you're really not making a lot of money, because you get to thinking within that aspect, your feed, your fuel, your fertilizer, your equipment is all continuing to go up. Your feedlot folks, the margins are not there, even though they're paying the high prices.
What's a feedlot folk?
The feedlot people, individuals that's feeding them out.
Now, is that out in the Midwest? That's in the Midwest.
Yes, the Midwest. So basically, you get to thinking, well, even with the prices being high, those commodity items are even higher. So at the end of the day, the margins are still not there. So it's like I said, we're just getting to pay a few more bills. Now, I'm getting to where the question you'd asked. So I think basically back last fall, basically when an announcement was made, I was actually in D.C. when they looked at possibly importing in some Argentine beef. And basically there, like you said, we import, a number of beef items, protein from a number of other countries that goes along with our, the fat trimmings to create hamburger and that type thing there. So it goes back within those trade agreements. But the thing there is basically our inventory, our cattle inventory is at an all-time low, 70-year low is what they're saying, for a number of reasons. Like you said, basically, the Mexican border's been closed, so that amount of cattle is not coming in. So, basically, we have processed a good bit of cattle. Basically, the droughts in the past, those type of things there. But I think within the end of the day, like I said, one of the things that's always been looked at is food. Basically, food security is national security. So, like I said, you always heard never want to put all your eggs in one basket. But you get to thinking, like I said, I think it's brought some attention within where it's at, that even the administration has looked into, and I've actually had spoke through Brian Jack's office a number of times. He'll reach out. We have agricultural talks, just because he wants to make sure that he is aware of what's going on occurring not only within his district but the state of Georgia and even nationally. So basically, looking at those 4 meat packers, because like I said, 2 of them being foreign owned.
Why can't 2 of them are foreign owned?
Yeah, well, see, JBS is out of Brazil, and JBS is one of the largest meat processing facilities. So basically, you get thinking there's a concern because of anything that may occur. You get thinking if they have that much percentage related to the beef industry within the country, what could it do for the beef industry? So I think one thing there is I got to have the opportunity through Brian Jack's office to talk with some of the ag folks at the DC level. And one of the things, like I said, they had the Farm Bill, but then they come out kind of a Farm Bill 2.0. And one of the things there, as I even mentioned, was that, we need more, some opportunity, incentives, assistance. But anyway, basically looking at more regional processing facilities.
Have you met with Secretary Rollins? Have you met?
I've met her 2 or 3 times.
Oh, really?
And yes, and I'm gonna be honest with you, she's solid. A lot of times, first time I ever met her, we had a round table as she come in to the state, and she's from Texas. She knows the industry, knows the policy making side of it. She's the one that's kind of addressed with the DOJ, looking into the 4 meat packers, that type thing there. Back last November, I think is when they arose that. So she has stayed on top of that. Been to Georgia a number of times, but what impressed me with her is a lot of times, let's say you're going to meet the media and you're going to answer questions. You got 15 minutes before the media. A lot of times you may see individuals, they may speak 13 minutes to take 2 minutes of questions. She spoke 2 minutes and took 13 minutes of questions and never batted an eye. She was solid. She was on top of it. She's educated, so I think she's doing a very good job, and I've enjoyed the few times I've got to work around her and get to conversate with her.
I guess this morning is David Huddleston, State Representative, District 72. We'll be back with more after this.
Imagine a place where every heartbeat is monitored with the utmost care, where emergencies are met with swift attention, and where cutting-edge technology enables precise and timely treatments. At Tanner Health, every patient's journey is a testament to resilience, a story of strength, healing, and hope. We go beyond treatment to redefine what compassionate care truly means. That's Tanner Health. That's care redefined. Learn more at tanner.org.
Do the math. At Oak Mountain Academy, our average graduating class has just 12 students. We celebrate a 100% graduation rate with more than $10.5 million in college scholarships offered. Plus, 96% of our students are accepted into their top choice college. Do the math. Can you see the value of an OMA education? I'm Patrick Uran, head of school at Oak Mountain Academy, and I'm here to help you do the math. For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us so that you can discover your journey on the mountain, where every path leads to purpose.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Community Voice. David Huddleston, District 72 State Rep, is in the studio, and May is Beef Month, so we've been talking about the beef cattle industry. So this is the month, correct?
Correct. Yeah, basically, like I said, have an opportunity to be the Georgia Cattlemen's Association president. Like I said, it allows me to work with the chapters around the state, and how we go about that is like I said, you get thinking. I mean, it's a working organization, and how that goes about. We have 13 members on the executive council, executive committee, that meet regularly. But then we have 15 regions around the state with 15 regional vice presidents. So basically, those regional vice presidents, then they're over their region, and like I say, anywhere from 7 to 9 chapters, let's say, within each region. So something that we've started there, like within that, because you get thinking just under the Georgia Cattlemen Association, I mean, you have the Georgia Cattle Women's Association, you have the Georgia Beef Board, you have the YCC, which is kind of the young college cattlemen, then you have the junior cattlemen. So you get to thinking there's so much under the umbrella of the Georgia Cattlemen Association, the representing of beef and the beef industry around the state. And you get thinking within that, like I said, being Beef Month, I want folks to be able to share about the industry. But one of the things, my goals this coming year, is you get to thinking, good Lord's blessed me, I think, with organizational skills and leadership abilities, and just blessed by that. A lot of times individuals, not only at state level but the local level, may get put into a position of leadership that may not have the tools and resources needed for them to succeed within that position. And a lot of these are all volunteer positions. So one of my goals is basically, like I said, I had mentioned earlier that I got involved back in the early 2000s at the state leadership wide, and they had an emerging leaders conference, which was like a 2 or 3 day just intense training on the beef industry at the state level. But then, like I said, got involved at the legislative level, policy making. So my goal is not only from the state level, but instill those tools and resources needed down to through the VPs, down to the local chapters, because you get to thinking, you've heard me talk about preservation of farmland and next generations to come. Our local leaders, and I know you've spoken to the local cattleman leadership and that type of thing there, where you get to thinking in years to come, those local leaders at the chapter level will be your state leaders. So I want to make sure that they're instilled with the tools and resources needed. And being May is Beef Month, like I said, if you turn on the Atlanta TV, they got, Burgers with Buck, the Atlanta burger competition. I think there's 40-something restaurants. White Doolittle's pretty much over the beef board, kind of handling that within the marketing and sharing of that. So there's a lot of chapters, related to Beef Month, sharing about beef, educating the elementary school kids and all about beef and where it comes from. And that's the thing, is we've just got to teach not only beef, but all the commodity items of where our food comes from day to day. But, you get to thinking within this month, there's rodeos and like you said, the Carroll County Region 4, June 18th, has our big annual get-together of whole Region 4. And, it produced 200 or 300 folks up here at the Ag Center, Turns out to be a great event. But one of the things, talking about Top Hand, and y'all, I know Paula and Neil and them have mentioned it before, but the great thing about Top Hand is it's instilling into our youth today of just working livestock, but working it safely through BQA measures and that type of thing there. And this, I'm proud because back in the day, we had the opportunity of Carroll County kind of birthing that idea on a piece of notebook paper sitting right up here at the Ag Center. And about I'm going to say 6 years ago or something like that, and basically where it's at today, UGA's got involved with it with around the state, and now they're hosting regional events. We just had the state event here a couple weeks ago here locally at the Ag Center, and a Coweta team won first, but we've had a number of our other local teams from Harrison and Carroll place. So now it's even got to not only being a state, but a national event. So I'm going to be traveling in July to Elizabethtown, Kentucky for the national event, and our local winner will be representing the state at the national in Kentucky. But the thing there is, at the end of the day, that I can say it, we as old farmers, we've got to instill, as you mentioned earlier, and even me working with my son, we've got to work with other young people that's interested in getting into farm, getting into ag, teaching them the right ways of going about it. And like you said, it's just a passion of mine, because I think that's why God put me here on this earth, was to pass on that to the next generation. So
we've only got about a minute left, but are you optimistic about passing it on to the next generation? Are you seeing positive signs?
Yes. I was going to say, basically what I'm seeing here, especially locally, and I'm involved a lot with them around the state, is the biggest thing is we've just got to bring the passion back to it. It's hard work. It's a way of life that you seek. And I tell folks, richness comes in many of ways, and it's not by the dollar sign, but it's the way of life you live. And I think the farm way of life is just amazing. Just like this morning to be here on time. Got up early this morning, but just see the sun come up and the birds start chirping. I mean, it's just the way of life that you seek. But I think that the young generation, there's so many job opportunities, not just raising cows, but in agricultural together, that like you said, it just is for the whole industry that I think, yes, I'm very optimistic on.
All right. Well, thank you. And if someone needs to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Hey, just reach out to me as you always have. Like I said, love talking to constituents and anybody involved, but my number is 404-535-1110, and look forward to talking to you.
All right. David Huddleston is our guest this morning. We thank you, David, for coming in. We all hopefully have you in. You don't have a challenger in the coming election, so we'll hopefully have you in this year. We'll talk more about beef and farming and agriculture and state repping. And
a little bit of all of it.
Everything put together in one big pot. All right. Thank you for listening, and go out and make it a great day. God bless our troops, and you're in tune to WLBB Carrollton.